Joining me now is Congressman Cedric Richmond of Louisiana, who was just elected himself, by the way, the new chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. He'll be the youngest person to chair the CBC in 31 years. Congressman Richmond, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let me start with this Medicare. It's clear that the party wants to be a united voice on this, on Medicare. Donald Trump, the candidate, sounded more like a Democrat when it came to Medicare and Social Security than Paul Ryan, for instance. Is this a goal? Is this an attempt to drive a wedge between Ryan and Trump?
No, actually, we don't care about the relationship between Ryan and Trump. We care about the millions of people that rely on Medicare on a daily basis, and that is one of the things that we put down as our litmus test in terms of fairness and in terms of responsibility. And Trump, the candidate, is very different than Trump, the president-elect, who is nominating people who I think are inconsistent with our desire to protect the Medicare guarantee.
It goes to this larger question here that I know that some Democratic activists are struggling with, but Democratic lawmakers are not. I've not interviewed a Democratic lawmaker that hasn't said they're willing to work with President Trump wherever is necessary. But there are a lot of Democratic activists that I guess you hear from that say don't work with him at all. What do you tell those activists that don't want Democrats to work with Trump at all? What do you tell them why they're wrong about that?
Well, look, I think for the activists, they are taking Trump at his word. All the things that he said he wanted to do, they believe him. And for those young activists that are out in the streets, it's driven out of fear and the unknown. Now, as policymakers, I think we have a responsibility to govern the best we can with the hand that we're dealt. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be running over to President Trump anytime soon to do anything. I think our first line of action is to make sure that we protect those things that we believe in: equality, anti-discrimination, economic opportunity, public education. All of those things, fair housing, all of those things are very important to us. And as we look at his nominees that he's putting forward, they're really contradictory to our values. So if you're asking me where immediately do I see room for us to work together on something, I don't necessarily see it. And I have not seen his outreach to offer any areas where we can work together. So we're preparing to fight. We're going to fight from day one because we just don't have much room for error, and the people that we represent are far too vulnerable.
Let me ask you about leadership inside the Democratic Party. It's interesting to me that House Democrats as a whole, did not change leadership, did not move in look for a new generation of leaders. The Congressional Black Caucus did. You're the youngest head of the CBC, as I noted, in 3 decades, even as the CBC is technically getting older, collectively on average age. Why do you think 2 different messages were sent? It seems as if African-American members of Congress said, you know what, we need to reach to a new generation of leaders. It's time to make way. Why wasn't that heard to all of House Democrats?
Well, I think it was heard by House Democrats. If you look at our entire leadership team, it has been broadened, and we've added very capable young members like Hakeem Jeffries to the fold, and others who I think can speak to younger generations in a language that they can understand and understand their priorities. Just because we didn't change the top 3 doesn't mean that we didn't have a large amount of change within our body. I think Tim Ryan, who ran for leader, did a great job of guiding the conversation about where we need to go in the future. And I think that Leader Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn received it, and they are embracing the younger generation to come in and help shape our leadership team.
Let me talk about the election that's taken place in Saturday. Campaign 2016, if you miss it, a message to 49 other states, you can come down to go to your home state of Louisiana and go experience the last race of 2016, the U.S. Senate race there. The Democrat is Foster Campbell. You know, he put out a statement essentially yesterday welcoming President-elect Trump to campaign in the state. He's going to campaign on behalf of Republican John Kennedy, but making the case that he's a better fit with Trump ideologically on some issues than Kennedy is. What's your message to Democrats when it comes to this uphill battle in Louisiana?
Well, look, for Democrats, we don't always take the easy road. And the things we fight for are life and death issues. And the things we fight for when you start talking about equality and anti-discrimination, Those are things that people have died for before. So we're gonna fight. We're gonna continue to fight. I urge everyone to come to Louisiana. We have a candidate who did a commercial talking about he's going to bring jobs back, and he showed a cotton field. Those type of messages that we're still sending in this day and age, I think that the country should stand up and fight against. And Foster Campbell has a proven track record of fighting for the little man, fighting for working people, and I think he would be a great senator.
Sounds like you think John Kennedy has run a race-based campaign?
Well, I think he was pandering on his last commercial, and a lot of his ads, whether it's his consultants or him, borderline on flat-out racist images or wording in his commercials.
One final question. What is it going to? What do you say to Democrats that say, you know what, can't win in the South anymore, can't win statewide in the South without the Republican Party having a scandal or having some major split like what happened in the Louisiana governor's race last year?
Well, if you recall the Louisiana governor's race, our governor ran on expanding Medicaid, raising the minimum wage, and all those other popular issues. It's just that he took them to the people and talked to people in a language that they can understand. We can't govern and campaign with just slogans. We have to talk to people about what's important to them. And that's things people are talking about at the dinner table: how to pay the mortgage, how to get the kids in a better school, whether it's private school or public school, whether they can afford a bigger house, whether they can save for retirement, whether they can take a vacation. And until we start talking about the issues that people talk about every night when they're at the dinner table, we're going to keep losing. And I think that that's the biggest thing that came out of this election. And I don't think it's just the Rust Belt. I don't think it's just a problem with white males. I think it's a problem with every person in the country that receives a paycheck. They're not happy, and they want us to focus on their upward mobility. And that, I think, we lost the message on economics.
All right. Cedric Richmond, Democrat from Louisiana, the new chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Thanks for joining the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Congratulations on your election, by the way.